Right, so we're off to Goodrich. It's a rich.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
not ridge.
Yeah.
Castle. Goodrich Castle.
And we bought Mrs. Satnag, haven't we? Because
Yeah.
Mr. Satnag is getting on her nerves.
Yeah. Yeah, so we bought...
Mrs. Satnag.
or more commonly known as the Avtex Tourer 2.
Yeah, and all...
Going on there. Oh, yeah, because you said Mrs. Satnag.
Oh, she's got voice command.
Voice command.
We can't hear her because you put her on mute. We've got to turn right here.
Okay. Yeah, so you can unmute it.
Yeah, which is always a good idea.
Which we always forget to do. We always set off and then get interrupted 16 times by the sat-nav saying, turn right at the roundabout.
This is the traffic in Tewkesbury.
Zoom off.
She's saying...
Go left. I think
Left.
we've
At
muted.
the roundabout,
Oh, thank you.
take the first exit to High Street.
Getting worried there. Thought she weren't talking to us. Gone for a
Well-
sulk.
We didn't respond to her before, did we?
No. Yeah, so if you say Mrs. Satnag, yeah, it listens
In
to
a
you.
quarter of a mile, turn left onto my road.
And I think you have to say, hello, Mrs. Satnag.
Say a command.
There. Exit.
Yeah, she's very clever. Yeah, we're going towards the M50.
Turn left
Yeah.
onto my road.
Sounds like my road, doesn't
My
it? This
road. Yeah.
M-Y-T-H-E.
Over the Avon. I think that's over the Severn.
Yeah, so we did the Avon 7 ring, didn't we?
Yeah.
I prefer being on a road,
Yeah. On a road.
yeah, rather than rivers. And it's nice, but
Or being on a river.
no,
Being on a road.
oh, shut up. Don't
At the
think.
roundabout, take the third exit to M50.
Yeah, I can see the M50.
South Wales.
Well, the Malverns are up that way.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? The Three Counties Showground.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And there's two...
Take the slip road ahead.
And
there were two sites close to each other, weren't there?
Yeah.
A camping and caravanning club and a caravan and motorhome club.
Yeah.
Both really big sites, weren't they?
Yep.
Have to go back there sometime.
Yeah.
Continue on M50.
It's a very quiet motorway, this isn't the M50, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
Been good.
I don't think we've ever been on it before.
No. There's quite a view over there.
At the roundabout, take the first exit to A40.
We're coming into the Wye Valley, aren't we?
Yeah, I think that's Ross-on-Wye over there.
Yeah.
In 1 mile, turn left onto Castle Lane.
Goodrich Castle.
In 3/4 of a mile, turn left onto Castle Lane.
There's a fairly wide lane, this, isn't there?
Yeah, no, I think this is alright for if you're bringing a van so far. Bringing a moto. It's not so bad if you're bringing an up.
No. If you brought the van, you can see over the hedge better.
Yeah, that's true. School by the looks of it. Must be getting there. Poppy's shaking herself.
Turn left onto Castle Lane.
Polling station.
Oh, because it's voting today, isn't it?
Yeah, we've done our bit on my postal votes. Here we are. Goodrich Castle. Not far from Simmons Yacht, are we?
No.
quarter of a mile, navigate off-road.
Okay.
Oh,
Navigate off-road.
Okie dokie.
otherwise she's got no idea.
But yeah. Yeah.
Car park to the left. Car park there. Well, it's a huge car park. I thought it was.
Yeah. That bit over there then. This is Goodrich Castle.
Come on.
Its opening times. Doesn't say how much to get in if you're a non-member.
Come on.
Yes, there's a map of Herefordshire there. Hereford itself, Malvern Hills, Ross-on-Wye, and we're down here somewhere. Over here it talks about the walks. So we're there, just below Ross-on-Wye. Coppet Hill walks. Right, so we're going to download the, scan the code with your phone camera and listen to the stories. Right, we'll give that a go. Map my visit. Here we are, Goodrich Castle.
Alright. Clever. Yep, it's
Okay.
quick.
16 objects to discover. Okay, introduction. What I should do is actually record this one, screen record it.
Welcome to Goodrich Castle. Please step outside the visitor centre and find a comfortable place to stand while
Go on,
I
Pups.
explain briefly how this audio guide works. Thank you for activating this audio tour. You can play any of these audio clips as you explore the site, but the audio will guide you to the next stop. During your visit, please ensure that you maintain a safe distance from anyone who is not in your group. Please
you're in
follow
my group.
any route instructions given by staff and indicated on signs around the property. Press play on the image of your chosen stop. You can use the A, B or C selection buttons to access further information. The middle button, B, is also used to pause and resume the audio. Before you start the tour, please note that if you are using your own device, there may be references to a green play button. In this case, please select the B option when you hear this instruction. If you listen to everything, your tour will take approximately an hour. But you may be wondering where the castle is. Well, if you follow me up the path ahead, you'll soon have a good view. Wait till you get to the end of the path where you'll find a panel marked with a number 1.
To another castle, aren't you?
Looks like there's going to be some beautiful countryside here.
I
I'm just
know.
about to see the castle.
Yep.
Wow. That was something else, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, that's the keep, obviously, straight ahead, isn't it? Which
Yeah.
you can't unfortunately
Can't
go in
the
at the
keep at the
moment.
moment, no. You can see it's sort of, they built it up around the base of the tower there, didn't they?
Yeah, all the rocks at the bottom.
Yeah. And it's in a deep sort of moat area, I guess. Beautiful countryside around.
Yeah, we're in the Wye Valley, aren't we?
Yeah,
There's houses right up there.
yeah.
So, here it is, Goodrich Castle, its towering walls rising up from the bedrock. Today, we experience medieval castles as monuments frozen in time, imposing remains of a moment in history. But what we see in front of us is, in fact, the product of many centuries of changing fortune.
1100. Godrich's castle is mentioned for the first time in the
Declare
Charter of
refortifies the castle,
but he dies in 11.
William Marshall modernises the buildings and upgrades the
1245,
defence.
his last surviving son dies without an heir.
1247.
The
The
estate
king
is
grants the
divided.
castle to William de Valence, who rebuilds it almost...
24. William's only son dies without leaving an heir.
1326.
The castle part.
Elizabeth's new husband seizes the castle back for her. He later establishes...
The 4th Earl of Shrewsbury takes possession of the castle.
1631. The castle buildings are repaired at the Earl of Kent's expense.
1643. Civil war breaks out. Castle Goodrich is garrisoned by parliamentary troops.
So, where shall we start? Well, let's start with the soil beneath our feet. We know that over 900 years ago, Goodrich Mapperson, an English nobleman, built the first castle here. Nothing now remains of that castle except the name. Godrich's castle became Goodrich Castle. But only 50 years later, during the early 12th century, another nobleman, Richard de Clare, started building here too. And part of his castle survives. You can see its grey square tower in the centre of the ruins.
That's the keep.
That's
This
the keep,
is the
yeah.
oldest building at Goodrich. It's called the Great Tower, or Keep, and it was the main living quarters of Richard de Clare's castle. We'll see more of it later. On either side of the keep are two round towers. These date from the 13th century and were built by the de Valence family. William and Joan de Valence were granted the rights to the castle by King Henry III. Most of what remains today dates from their time, so it's as their guests that we enter the castle today. So, let's move on. Carry on down the path.
Once you've turned the corner and have a good view, select B.
From here, we have a wonderful view of the eastern side of the castle. It certainly looks imposing and a bit threatening. The cross-shaped openings with long vertical slits are arrow slits, and they allowed crossbowmen to shoot anyone trying to approach on the path or through the ditch. But there are also other somewhat contradictory features. For example, Goodrich Castle has a good many windows. Not something you'd expect to find in a fortified building. In fact, up until the Civil War in the 17th century, Goodrich Castle rarely had to defend itself against enemies. And when William and Joan de Valence took it over, they rebuilt it as much as a home as for defensive purposes. It was meant to look imposing, not just in order to deter potential enemies, but also in order to lend status to its owners and declare their importance to all who'd come to visit them. And as we shall see, it was fitted with all the mod cons of the day. Look at the protruding wall just to the left of centre and the windows in it. This is the garderobe, what we would call a toilet. You can still see the outlet
Yeah.
at the bottom of the wall. I hate to think where the waste went. The ditch, by the way, was never filled with water.
Oh.
Well, let's proceed on our way into the castle. If you haven't already reached it, walk along this path until you come to the small bridge.
When you're on the bridge, select B.
Imagine approaching on this path in the 13th century, the time of the de Valences. A nobleman on a horse, or a simple peasant, come to petition the lord and lady.
Yeah.
Imagine seeing the castle rising from afar, the long approach, and here, the first entrance point. This bridge would originally have been a drawbridge, and those inside the castle would have had to let it down to allow you to enter.
There's a castle. Yeah, letting down the drawbridge for you.
So if you can go up.
This part of the castle is called the Barbican. Strictly speaking, we're not in the castle yet. The Barbican is an outer defence structure. Right next to the drawbridge we just came across, you can see the remains of a small gatehouse. and the porter would undoubtedly have come out to ask you about your business.
Knock, 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 never at quiet. What are you? But this place is too cold for hell. I'll devil porter it no further.
If you were a tenant farmer, the Barbican would probably have been as far as you got, and you would have been asked to stand in a corner or sit on the ledge which you can see running along the outer wall. If you were a knight on horseback, however, someone would have come out to greet you and lead you into the castle. And if you now turn towards the castle, you'll see the impressive gatehouse.
To continue, select B.
Have a look at the gatehouse. It's not just the small
Calm down
archway
there,
you can
Pops.
see leading into the castle, but the entire structure around it. As the main entrance to the castle, it's symbolic of the transition from the outside world to the castle's interior world, and it's tactically important. When we'll walk through it in a moment, you'll see that it has a number of formidable defense structures. But the gatehouse at Goodrich Castle also has another feature, and one not necessarily compatible with the defense of a fortified home. No doubt you've noticed that it has a window, and a large
Can't
and
go
rather
in there,
ornate
babe.
one at that.
Can't go
Its
in.
delicate Gothic tracery creates a sharp contrast to the simple starkness of the main building. The window we see today dates from the 15th century, except for the glass, of course, which is modern. But there was already a window here in the 13th century, in the time of the de Valences. It extended further down, and you can still see its outlines in the stone. The window was designed to let light into the gatehouse, for the gatehouse tower also houses a chapel, and this shows again that Goodrich was not just an armed encampment, but also a stately residence meant to dazzle with its beauty and the refined architectural features. This is the oldest structure at Goodrich Castle, dating from around 1150. If you look at the window right at the top, you'll see surrounding it zigzag ornamentation. This is a typical Norman architectural feature. Richard de Clare, who built the keep, was a Norman nobleman. But most of the other buildings here were built by William de Valence. To the left of the keep stands the southeast tower. This was mainly used for accommodation. It's linked by a wall walk on the upper story to the gatehouse block where we came in. In this block you can see the entrance to the chapel, which we'll visit later. Continuing round anti-clockwise and downwards, you'll see the ruins of a building known as the Solar Block. Again, these were mainly living quarters, and they would have been among the most sophisticated in all of England. You can still see two elaborate archways. Behind them stood the Lady Tower, of which hardly anything remains today. And continuing anti-clockwise, the next building is the Great Hall. Last but not least, you've probably already noticed the large iron artillery piece, or mortar, on a wooden carriage in the courtyard. This is Roaring Meg, and she is the reason why Goodrich Castle is a ruin today. But more of that later.
Okay, so that's the go on.
The solar block.
The solar block. Yeah. Could do with a bit of solar, couldn't we?
You're now facing the solar block. This somewhat peculiar name comes from the French for floor, sol, and it denotes a building with several stories. It was built as a space where intimate members of the family could spend their time in relative privacy and seclusion. We're looking down here at a lower floor, which would probably often have served as a storage space. But the room that was originally at our level was a great chamber. And that meant that it could be used as a living room with recessed windows in the wall where the family could sit overlooking the Wye Valley. But the room could also be used for sleeping, dressing, washing, or even eating. To our modern sensibility, life in a medieval household would have seemed disconcertingly public. There were very few areas where one could be alone. Bedrooms and bathrooms were shared, and lords and ladies were attended by their body servants while dressing or washing. Let's look back at the room in front of us, or as it were, its remaining walls. Goodrich Castle was well equipped, with no expenses spared. And if you look towards the far left of the wall, through the arch, you'll see a small recess in the stonework. This is what remains of a wash basin.
Oh,
An
over
unusually
there.
high number of wash basins have been discovered at Goodrich, and we'll see a few more as we go around. By furnishing their house with all the modern amenities, the de Valences were asserting their status and reaffirming their position as important noblemen. Cleanliness was linked to gentility, and the consistent quality of the furnishings at Goodrich attests to the importance of hospitality in this house. Turn around now and look at the building to the left, running along the side of the courtyard.
Lose her in the moat, will you?
Taking me down here. You can come down here, John. Oh. Go on then, you're going to explore up there. Come on, let's go and have a look. See out here, can't we? Come on. Locked off there, isn't it? Round, Pops. And she's gone. Poppy.
You're on Poppy's tour now, yeah. Just give up with it, the plan route. I think this is next in here.
Poppy's pulling the lead.
All castles have a great hall. It's here that you would have come to submit your petitions to William de Valence, be dazzled by the quality of the surroundings, and of course take part in lavish feasts. On the right, you can see, in the first recess, the remains of a big fireplace.
Wow, that would have been big,
Once
wouldn't it?
again, the builders and designers of Goodrich were at the forefront of modern architecture. Up until then, most great halls just had a central hearth. This was a room for ceremony, and not only on special occasions. Eating in public was part of the everyday life of leading a great household, and etiquette had to be meticulously observed. This included the seating arrangements. At the high table to the end of the hall where we entered sat the lord and lady with their most important guests. Then came the other members of the household at long tables with benches, probably in a U-shaped arrangement, seated in declining order of status. Of course, the lower your status, the closer you were to the kitchens, and so ironically,
we'd be in the kitchens,
warmer your food was likely to be when it arrived. Very little survives of the kitchens today, and we can assume that there would have been additional buildings. A sorcery, for example, a spicery, and a scullery. Today, this room is open to the elements. But try to imagine what it would have been like in the days of Joan de Valence. Make your way over to the wooden railing. Behind it, you can see the remains of a large hearth with two semicircular bread ovens on either side.
Oh, yeah.
When the Countess was in residence, the kitchen would have teemed with staff, and it would have been stiflingly hot and full of commotion. We've already heard that large numbers of people had to be fed in a medieval household. In fact, Joan de Valence spent 40% of her income on food and drink. When she arrived here in November 1296, 81 pigs were killed, and countless loaves of bread were baked.
What's she done here?
I don't know.
In the middle of the 12th century, this was quite a small keep. Richard de Clare, who built it, was an ambitious man, but he wasn't very rich. He also had powerful enemies.
Can't go in there,
King
Pops.
Henry II hadn't forgotten that Richard had backed the other side in a war against Henry's mother. And so he had to make do with what you see here. The building would originally have had 3 floors, with the one you're now standing in used as a basement storage space. This had no independent entrance from outside and could be accessed by a trapdoor from the main floor above. From there, stairs led up to the main accommodation. These rooms were still in use in Joan de Valence's time, though she would probably have made sure that only lesser guests or members of the household stayed here. Although the keep was regarded as an attractive antique feature, advertising the age of the castle, after 150 years, it was hardly considered to be the height of comfort. If you want, you can go up the wooden stairs to the first floor, where narrow stone steps
you can't.
lead up onto the roof. But do be careful, as they are very steep.
I can't do that. There's dungeons down there.
Put Poppy in the dungeon.
Yeah.
Bit dark and dingy down there, Pops, isn't it?
It's a dark, narrow prison with a vaulted roof, apparently. The hole for the drawbridge bar is located outside the door, so it cannot be opened from the inside.
Oh, right.
Poachers and thieves awaiting trial were probably imprisoned here. Poppy, that says no entry.
Can you not read? It says no entry up there. It's a one-way system.
Oops, she says.
Let's go down here and see what's down here then. Don't go in there, Pops. Well, it's inside all the towers in here, isn't it? Right.
It said the dungeon was prone to flooding.
Yeah, this is
Lovely,
obviously.
wasn't it?
Yeah. Come on. What's in there, Pops?
Toilets.
We are now on the upper floor of the gatehouse. And while historians have quite a good idea of what the building as a whole would have been used for, this room is a bit of a mystery. It may have been the constable's room, or
Nice big
accommodation for the
fireplace.
chaplains.
Yeah.
You may remember that there's a chapel downstairs. Religion was an important part of everyday life in the Middle Ages, and Joan de Valence employed up to 9 chaplains. Mass was said several times a day, but because they were literate, the chaplains also had other more administrative duties, acting as advisors and modern-day secretaries. Running a medieval household was a considerable administrative effort. Joan de Valence's household was split into 6 departments: the kitchen, the pantry, responsible for bread and table linen, the sorcery, responsible for condiments and
You'd have to give them a
spices,
department
the
code, wouldn't
butter,
you?
Yeah.
responsible
Great
for
fun.
wine and ale.
And a code for the
Lodgings,
salt and
responsible for lodgings, and the Marshalsea, which was mainly responsible for the formidable task of moving all these people and their possessions from castle to castle. The most senior officers also had the most demanding jobs. It would not have been unusual for the constable, who may even have lived in this room, to be the first one up in the morning and the last to bed, after what must have frequently been, according to records, a 17-hour day.
Whoa.
well,
Now you complain about working conditions.
Go into the next room now, where you'll find the next panel.
From here you have a wonderful view over the Wye Valley, with the river running just below. The Wye Valley forms the border between England and Wales, and this may be one of the reasons why Goodrich was built in the first place. After the Norman conquest of 1066, a great number of castles were built on the Welsh border. Goodrich stands on a crest in a broad loop of the river, and its position is therefore strategically important. And if you now turn around, you'll see two large rectangular openings in the wall ahead of you, as well as two square holes in the floor. These are the same holes we saw from below when first entering the castle in the gatehouse, and they were probably used to operate the portcullis. The large rectangular openings allowed turning room for the handles of the winch used to raise the portcullis.
So that was
Round
down.
holes in the masonry show where the shaft of the winch sat.
oh, right.
The portcullis itself came up within the thickness of the wall in the open space between this wall and the one behind it.
Down there, Poppy.
In fact, if you stick your head into one of the rectangular openings and look down, you'll see the floor of the gatehouse below.
Yep.
A long metal grille, some way back, in the floor of the Portcullis Chamber, indicates where a second portcullis dropped
Oh, that's
down.
the second one. All right.
But the equipment used to operate it has long since vanished.
That's the first one.
All this is well thought through. Though,
down there,
if
then?
truth be told, this stretch of the river was usually peaceful, and Goodrich only had to defend itself against Welsh attackers once.
Surprising, isn't it?
All right. Oh.
Mind the step.
Oh, this is from the...
Yeah.
They are up the top.
So you would have come this way, but it's a one-way system.
Hospitality played an important part in the medieval household, and it was not uncommon for visitors and their retinue to stay over an extended period of time. Joan de Valence often had visits from her female friends. We know that the Lady of Raglan Castle liked to stay here, and the Prioress of Aikenbury. This tower provided luxury accommodation for them, and there's just about enough of it left for us to imagine what these rooms
That's
would have looked
fireplace.
Yeah.
like. Each had a large fireplace,
It's large and it's huge.
Yeah.
and there were wash basins in the corners of each room.
Oh,
Guests could sit on the window
here,
seats
yes.
and look out at the countryside.
yeah.
And they
Window
would play
seat.
games like chess, backgammon, or Nine Men's Morris, all strategic board games very popular in the Middle Ages. As aristocratic life in the Middle Ages was itinerant, much of the furniture had to be portable. The walls were hung with tapestries that were transported from one residence to another, and so were curtains, chairs, chests, even beds, the latter often with elaborate canopies. And the servants? Where did they sleep? In the time of Joan de Valence, there weren't any dedicated servants' quarters, and so servants slept scattered throughout the house, anywhere that was warm and comfortable. Sleepwalking, you would have stumbled across them in the kitchen, the hall, and the corridors. Even so, the de Valence's retinue of 200 would not all have fitted into the castle, and some of them would probably have had to stay in the nearby village or live in wooden structures and tents erected outside the castle walls.
Well, we don't know what this area is, Pops. It's closed for your safety.
This is the chapel, and it's quite unusual. First, there's its position. We're in the gatehouse here, a building primarily meant for protection and defence. And indeed, if you walk further in and look through the narrow window to the left, you'll see the entranceway which you may remember from our own perilous entry to the castle. This window is one of the arrow slits. Through it, soldiers could observe visitors and shoot them if necessary. And if you now step up onto the platform under the stained glass window, you can see in the wall on your left a square hole. Through this hole, the drawbar that secured the gate was pulled. When pulled back to open the gate, this drawbar would have run right across the chapel. As this platform is also where the altar would have been, the drawbar would in fact have run right in front of the altar. The window here is the one we saw from outside the castle.
Window.
And the glass in it is one of the few modern additions to Goodrich. It was installed in 2000, and it shows the River Wye meandering through the countryside. If you now turn around, you'll see another modern window. This one was installed in 1992 and commemorates a tragic episode which happened just outside Goodrich. It shows an aircraft and, underneath, a depiction of a radar system.
Is it?
No, not that window, this window here.
Oh, grief, what you tell me?
A fuel leak caused RAF Halifax V9977 to catch fire and crash on the outskirts of Goodrich. All on board were killed.
I couldn't see
The
that.
plane had been flying a test mission for the H2S radar system, which later proved to be crucial to the Allied victory. Among those killed were some of the pioneers of modern radar technology.
Oh, that's this board here. Right. Look at it.
But before we
Go
go
on.
all the way back to modern times, let's take a short excursion into the 17th century. Walk out of the chapel. This is Roaring Meg, and the story of how she came to exist also explains why Goodrich is a ruin today. In 1642, the English Civil War broke out, and soon afterwards, Goodrich Castle became a stronghold of the Royalists, led by Sir Henry Lincoln. At first, the garrison was strong, but in June and July 1646, a heavy siege ensued, which in the end left the castle in ruins.
Right. Well, you be careful you don't go off the edge there. I think this is the last bit of the tour. It's been absolutely fascinating here. Pity we can't sort of go around in all the buildings, can't go in the keep, but I think that's the main one you're missing.
The stables were an important part of the castle and were used throughout its long history. The ruins you can see today are the result of a raid on Goodrich Castle. In 1646, Parliamentarian troops seized the horses of the Royalist garrison and burned the stables to the ground. But the location of the stables raises the interesting question of how, back when William and Joan de Valence stayed here, the horses were taken to the stables. Up to this day, archaeologists haven't been able to find a satisfactory answer, and we may never know.
Picture time.
Make me just sit on the pointy bit.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
Yeah. Woo! Come on then. Get up. Up. There we are. You're going to look at the camera over there. Beautiful. Yeah. Poppy's gone. Yeah. Yeah, I think Poppy's really enjoyed this.
Love castles, don't you?
Yeah, this one particularly. Just so much history in there, isn't there?
Yeah. And even though you couldn't go up the keep, I mean, I don't normally go up there. You two do. But
Yeah, it's just
it's
a
still
pity.
good.
But you can't get up there, but there's plenty to see still.
Yeah.
Yeah, not disappointed at all.
Came at 10, didn't we? So we're virtually on our own for the first half an hour.
Yeah. And the weather's
Weather's improving
Improved,
by
yeah.
a minute.
not actually about 3 degrees anymore.
No, it's probably about 10 now.
Yeah.
There's lots of mole holes.
Yeah, I don't want to go in down mole holes. Yeah, so if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe, hit the notifications icon, and you'll get an update for the next castle we visit. We'll see you soon. Bye then.
Not sure you can
Can what?
get round here because the notice board and everything's up there.
Okay.
Short of scaling the wall. Because if I brought all my equipment, I'd do.
Well, I've brought me Roaring Meg and 1,000 strong army. Might be able to do it.